I'd like to call our meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. on May 16th, 2024. Welcome everybody to the beautiful Lee County in Unit 31 of the NMDGF. It was a beautiful drive down here, especially seeing all our money coming out of Lee County and Eddy County that's supposed to support the general fund at 77%. So it's always good to see those beautiful flames at sunset going through. So thank you, Southeastern New Mexico, for supporting New Mexico. Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Stump.
Here.
Commissioner Salazar.
Present.
Commissioner Pack.
Present.
Commissioner Garcia is excused. Commissioner Fulfer. Here. Commissioner Clemente.
Present.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Present.
Have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Next, we go on to agenda item number 4, approval of the agenda. Is there any amendments? Present the agenda as presented.
I'm gonna go ahead and move to make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll, please.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, do it with the roll call, or you can do a voice vote.
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, next we will go on to the election of chair and vice chair. But before we do that, I just want to make a few comments. In the last 16 months that I was able to support the department and stakeholders as vice chair, it's been one heck of a ride. So thank you to the staff for taking phone calls from me, the commissioners, all the stakeholders in New Mexico. Thank you to the staff who helped us through E+ and the license buying system. Thank you for helping us host WAFA last year. It was a great success, many accolades. And especially thank you to all the commissioners who are here today and present online. And thank you to our director. I always follow the old motif since I was in organized labor, and that has been, you pray for the dead and you fight like hell for the living. That has always been my agenda. And with that, thank you once again. And again, thank you, Senator Fulfer, Commissioner, for hosting us down here in your beautiful Southeast New Mexico. And next we'll go to the election of chair. So are there any nominations for the election of chair of the New Mexico State Game Commission? Any nominations for chair of the New Mexico State Game Commission?
I'll make a nomination for Richard.
Is there any other nominations? Dr. Pack nominated Richard Stump. I'll second the nomination for Richard Stump. Is there any nominations?
This is for the
Chair. Okay. Mr. Secretary, would you please call the vote, please?
Commissioner Stump. Commissioner Salazar Hickey.
Yes.
Commissioner Pack.
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer.
yes.
Commissioner Clemente.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Stump. Motion passes.
Congratulations, Chair Stump. So as Robert Rules of Order now, the new chair will conduct the election for vice chair.
Terzio, thank you. Thank you for all your service tirelessly. You've done a great job. I've been exposed to you for not quite that long, but you've been so helpful to me. And I know everyone appreciates what you've done in this commission. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'd also like to thank the commission. I'd like to thank Director Sloan, Chief Lively, and all the supporting staff. I'm looking forward to working with all of you guys. And I appreciate your support. And I'd like to thank the members of the audience. I know a lot of you have come a long way. And let's all work together and see where we can go with this. So my first item is, may I have a nomination for vice chair, please? No nominations?
I'll make the nomination for Commissioner Sharon Salazar Hickey.
May I have a second, please? I'll second it. Any other nominations? Director, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Pack,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez. Chair Stump,
Yes.
motion passes.
Congratulations, Commissioner Hickey. Looking forward to working with you.
Director Sloan, Chair, Richard Stump, I want to say thank you. I am very honored to serve as vice chair. I want to thank Vice Chair, Terzio Lopez, for the service that he performed, this last year or so. I think he did a great job, and I thank him for the great service that he did. Chair Stump, I look forward to working with you and all of the other commissioners. And thank you, Director, and the rest of the Department of Game and Fish, and all of the other stakeholders, are members of the public. I am very honored to serve you and New Mexico.
Thank you, Commissioner Hickey. Okay, well, let's move on to item number 6, consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of April 19th, 2024, please?
I so move.
May I have a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor? Say aye.
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 Consent agenda is approved. Item number B, approval of 3 additional nonprofits to receive donated licenses. Director Sloan, could you please give us a brief summary on these entities, please?
Chair Stump, so state law 1737, the to provide donated licenses, transfer licenses that participants are unable to use to nonprofits. And they were to establish rules. They established 1931.3, allows the commission to allow those donated licenses to either resident youth, resident vets, or resident first responders. The 3 organizations that are listed here all meet the minimum criteria set forth in rule. All have a record of conservation actions. And I recognize the one in Nebraska is a little bit odd, but they do have they do meet the criteria, and they do understand that the resident nature of the program.
Thank you, Director Sloan. Are there any questions from the audience? Commissioners?
Just if it can be clarified, the amount of licenses and the species that is going to be provided to this nonprofit for the public too.
Director Sloan, do you have that?
Is that possible?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
If it can be provide the information on the licenses, what license they're gonna be given to the nonprofit organizations?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that will depend on what licenses get turned back in. For example, somebody breaks a leg 2 days before their hunt and they're unable to go on their hunt, but they want to donate the license, that license would go out to one of those nonprofits. So we don't know today what those licenses will be. It depends on what individuals who have drawn a license and can't use it and decide to donate it want to do.
Just for clarification, thank you.
Any other questions?
Chairman, I'd like to ask a question on who's all eligible, what nonprofits?
So the eligibility, see if I can find it specifically here. In order to be, this is from the rule 1931-311E. In order to be an approved nonprofit organization, the organization must demonstrate to the State Game Commission their history and ability to promote hunting, fishing, and trapping activities.
And who's the two additional ones? What are, and the description of them, if we could?
So I know that the Intrepid Care is a veteran-oriented outdoor organization. The Nebraska Big Game Conservation Organization, I don't know as much about. They are a nonprofit organization based in Nebraska that promotes hunting.
Thank you.
Commissioner, may I please have a motion to approve item B?
I'm gonna go ahead and move to approve, to make a motion to approve the three nonprofit organizations to be included.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Recommendations approved. Thank you. Item number 7, subsequent discussion of the Migratory Bird Rule 19.31.6 for hunting season 2024-25. Chief Lively, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, as you state, this is the subsequent presentation on migratory game bird rule. This is an annual rule for some of you commissioners. Your first meeting was the introduction to this, but we do this on an annual basis. We work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on developing flyway recommendations. On establishing all right, I think it's back. So we work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on an annual basis to develop the harvest rules. Where we are in the process right now, April meeting, I introduced the proposed perspectives to you all. In today's time, that affirms final recommendations, the regulations supported by the Fish and Wildlife Service, the frameworks that were allowed. And then we will come to you in August to approve a final rule. A final rule will then commence on September 1st with the start of the dove season. So according to the Fish and Wildlife Service, again, we have to work within the federal frameworks. Really what that is those frameworks were just published in the Federal Register. And what we're kind of doing, we have some ability to adjust season dates. We only get so many exposure days to hunting, but what our proposal is, we get a calendar shift every start on Saturday, starts a day earlier, 2 days earlier, given the leap year. So we're at the stage this year where we're pushing seasons back a week to adjust for that calendar shift. It's also kind of a preferred from the hunters, birds showing up a little bit later. And so you'll see that when we get to the charts on the proposed hunt dates. We're also getting a record amount. We get allocated so much Rocky Mountain population of sandhill cranes in our Middle Rio Grande Valley hunts in the Southwest. Our allocation is a record this year, so we are proposing to increase those draw hunts on those by 35. So we stay within our allocation, but offer some more hunter opportunity. I think we're eventually going to get to a place where we might get at kind of hunter overcrowding potentially, and we're going to continue to monitor that. Success rates haven't changed much, but we do feel that we can increase those hunts and stay within our allocation. One of the big changes that will probably occur in the 2025 season, not 24, but a new federal framework for pintails that will affect the state a lot. We've been at a pintail bag limit for quite some years. Pintails are right at that threshold where we could go to maybe a 2 or a 3 bird bag limit. Under the new frameworks that are probably going to be adopted by the Fish and Wildlife Service this year, it'll give more liberal harvest in it, but still staying within biological sustainability. So that will, really have probably a positive impact on our hunters, especially in the Middle Rio Grande, where we have a large wintering pintail population. For some of you commissioners that were on previously, we really did a lot of improvements at our Bernardo waterfowl management area. A lot of different water delivery, different habitat management, trying to improve how we move water across that landscape, given that we're seeing less and less water on an annual basis. And one of the things that we did is we created new kind of units, pond units and such, to try to be able to move water, move waterfowl. And what we're proposing to doing is opening different units within that for different hunts. And so that first one is created a handicap accessible specific blinds for waterfowl hunters. And we're going to proposing opening that this season for handicap hunters during the season on Monday, Wednesday, Saturday to coincide with some of the other openings, and then open that unit again during the light conservation goose order as well. That's a late season, trying to take care of an overabundance of light geese, and then also open the pond units, which we really improved to the south of the highway for regular hunters during that light conservation goose season. That hasn't been happening in the past, but we're seeing more and more birds utilizing that, and we want to be able to harvest those. We have received nine public comments as of May 15th on the proposed rules. Really, all the comments we also had a hybrid public meeting held in Albuquerque. Only 2 members of the public attended that meeting. Overall, people were in support of our increased draw permits for sandhill crane. They support the later duck seasons, more comments on that to account for when migratory birds show up, and then overall just support of the proposed changes. Real briefly, this is our proposed Central Flyway season dates. You'll see that the season that just ended, the 2023-24 season, those dates, and the proposed dates in the 24-25. You'll see there on a little bit of a shift about a week later on that opening, again, accounting for that calendar creep we get every year. We move that back every 4 to 5 years. And then in that south zone, we try to stay open as late as we can. We have to close the season, but according to the federal frameworks, by January 31st. So we push the south zones as late as we can, which means we open a little bit later on those because you can only have 107 exposure days. And then the Pacific Flyway, our proposed dates really haven't changed much because we get a little bit more exposure time in the Pacific than we do in the Central. So with that, I would take any questions. Just real briefly, again, after this meeting, we'll post all of our proposed rules on the website for the public to comment on, and then you will hear the hearing in August to vote on these rules. I don't take any questions from the commission.
Any questions from the public? Commissioners?
Yes, so would you go back to that slide that said the comments? I didn't get it all. You said increased draws, permits, later duck season. What was the third one? So they support the proposed. Did you say there was some against it, or was there everybody for this that you talked to?
We didn't have any opposition to it. Sometimes we would have comments that are outside of the allowable in the federal frameworks that we can't legally do. But these comments are the ones kind of specifically targeted at the waterfowl.
And you said one in person as well?
It was a hybrid meeting. Yes, we had offered the opportunity for members of the public to come to Albuquerque, and then also created a hybrid. We did have 2 members.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question. You mentioned on the pintail, obviously it's been decreasing. We only have 1 now. And do you know why is the reason of why biologically it's been decreasing the population?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clemente. So the population hasn't decreased. It's the framework that was set by the federal government on a target on when you get from what they call a liberal bag limit to a restrictive bag limit. And we're at the more or less restrictive bag limit right now. We're the liberal, the difference between liberal and restrictive is a few bird counts up in the north in Canada that really occurs. We're at like 1.9 million, 1.95 million pintails observed, which means restrictive. But if you hit 2 million, you're at liberal season. And so really what it was more probably the framework that was being decided upon on the bag limits versus the population. Pintails haven't been decreasing. It's just we're right at that we've been right at that mark where we're above or below. And so about 4 years ago, you'd see we shifted from like a 3 bird to 2 bird to 1 bird to 2 bird to 3 bird. And it's just been going back and forth. We've been right below that 2 million threshold. They've determined that that 2 million is not appropriate. And so there's a new model that they're going to put in place. We'll probably be more in that 3 bird bag limit moving forward in the 2025 season because the population has been really stable. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Lally is also going to present item number 8, initial discussion of the Bighorn rule. Chief.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I don't have a formal presentation, kind of more of a discussion on this. So during a little bit of background, our big game rules are on a 4-year cycle. It allows us to collect data on the species, make management recommendations based off of where we've seen harvest going, where we haven't, where we might want to change hunts based upon population status, where we might create new hunts, et cetera. The Bighorn rule was in that same cycle as the rest of the rules adopted in 2 years ago, so 2022. One of the issues that occurs with the Bighorn rule is two factors. One is Bighorn sheep numbers across the state are pretty small populations. We don't have a lot of opportunities afforded to them. And so we also have the state legislature set a statute that said the quotas on draw licenses. That is 84%, minimum 84% of the licenses go to residents, 10% to those that contract with an outfitter, and 6% go to those individuals that are non-residents that don't contract with an outfitter. And so with Bighorn, the way the hunts are, we have no more than, on our ram hunts, no more than 5 licenses in any given hunt. And so what happens with that is if you were to separate out those hunts individually, there would be no way to meet your statutory quotas. And so during the last rule cycle, there was a lot of discussion on, is there, the way we conduct the Bighorn, we lump all like Rocky Mountain Bighorn ram hunts into one hunt code, all desert ram hunts into one hunt code, all Rocky U rifle hunts or illegal sporting hunts into one hunt code, and one, excuse me, all archery U licenses into one hunt code. That way we can meet the statutory quotas on draws, 84, 6, and 10. And so during that, there was a lot of debate about should they be split out into individual hunt codes. Doing so potentially would make all those licenses resident only, or should we keep the status quo of what would happen? So it also occurred at the last rule cycle that there was an ask from a state representative to get an attorney general opinion on how the commission conducts and the department conducts the draw for Bighorn sheep. Is it legal? More or less was the question that it asked. The attorney general's opinion was that not only was it illegal, but not only was it legal, but the commission really had no other opportunity or needed to do so to meet that statutory requirement of the quotas, 84, 6, and 10. And so when the rule was coming up, there was a discussion amongst the public, amongst members of the public, about a potential legislative change to the quotas to address the issue that we have around Bighorn, small license numbers, maybe a bill that would come forth in the legislature that would deal with that. The rule was adopted on a 2-year instead of 4-year, hoping that, or not hoping, assuming there would maybe be a legislative change that would have happened during the last long session. No bill was introduced during that session, and so we still have the quota that in statute that states the 84, 6, and 10. All we're proposing, and the reason why this is in front of you now, is this rule expires on March 31st of 2025. So in order to have a Bighorn season next year, you all will have to approve an extension to the rule is what we're proposing, a 2-year to put it back in the same cycle as the other big game rules. So it'd be in the cycle of the other big game rules. We're not proposing any changes to the management scheme of Bighorn sheep right now. We don't see anything different that we would need from a rule change in that. We're just saying extend the rule to put it back in the same cycle. If there is a legislative change that occurs and a bill that comes through, you can always amend the rule to adjust for that if need be. But we're at the same statutory provisions we are now that we were 2 years ago. So again, all we're saying here is extend an amendment to the rule that would change the duration or the expiration date of the rule to put it back in line with the rest of the big game rules and in that cycle. So with that, I would take any questions.
We have 3 individuals, one group, New Mexico Wildlife Federation, Jesse DeBell. If you'd like to ask.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity. Last rule cycle, when we were dealing with this bighorn sheep lumping issue, the commission decided that they wanted the legislature to take action. The reality is that there are 2 conflicting statutes in the legislature, and this commission has the ability to decide which statute to follow. And this issue could be fixed right here at the commission. But if the commission wants to continue to forfeit their requirement to deal with wildlife management issues and turn that over to the legislature, we can do that. I don't suggest it, though. This commission is supposed to be the governing body that helps us manage wildlife in this state. The bighorn sheep lumping issue, it's lumped for one reason, and that's to take opportunity away from New Mexico residents. That's what bighorn sheep lumping does. There's no other way around it. This is the New Mexico State Game Commission. They should be working for their constituents. You should all be working for your constituents who are the residents of New Mexico. This bighorn sheep lumping rule is egregious and it needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeBell. David Heft. And I forgot to mention, we have a 3-minute limit on these presentations or these questions, please.
David Heft, I know some of the commissioners know who I am. For those that don't, I'm a retired wildlife biologist, long career here in New Mexico with multiple civilian agencies, including BLM and Forest Service. During that career, I was very heavily involved in bighorn sheep habitat management. I'm also a past director and vice president of the New Mexico chapter of the Wild Sheep Foundation, although my comments today are strictly personal. I support the rule as it currently stands. I was one of the individuals involved in the additional discussions in the last rule cycle where we had meetings because of contentious issues. Everybody was very professional and very courteous during those meetings, and I appreciate that, even though we had differing viewpoints. But I do strongly support the current rule. We won't go into some of the other details. I would like to raise a couple concerns about bighorn sheep management. When you get to the rule cycles, not just for bighorn, but for exotics in 2 years, I would appreciate it if some of the growing body of scientific evidence showing that Barbary sheep are a serious disease reservoir and vector, not just for transmission to our bighorn sheep, but potentially to mule deer. And the other issue that has recently come even more to the forefront is the illegal killing of bighorn sheep by primarily over-the-counter aoudad hunters, which is a more correct term for Barbary sheep. This issue recently has got to the issue that national organizations are becoming involved. Myself and some of the members of the Wild Sheep Foundation chapter here in New Mexico are now working with department personnel. And I know I showed Chief Lilly this morning some items that are coming out to try to improve some public education and some cautionary signing in the field. So, but I do support the rule as it currently stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heft. Next up is Brandon Nguyen for your comment, please.
Hello, Brandon Nguyen from Albuquerque. And on this opinion, I want to make a few corrections about the opinion on the Bighorn rule. It's not an opinion. It's a letter from Attorney General. It's not signed by the Attorney General. It's signed by Sally Malavey, Assistant Attorney General. It's junk. You know, one of the things that she mentions, there's 3 criteria that a body would have to look at when they're going to do whether they're complying with the statute or not. And one of those is what is the body done in the past? The Game Commission, as far as I know, has never lumped a hunt code before. It's strictly done because when we finally got a quota put on bighorn sheep and ibex and oryx in 2014, the Game Commission is want to do, since non-residents stood to lose. Boy, you jumped right into action. You started lumping. I begged at the time, don't lump. Let the legislature, force the legislature to fix it. Because if you didn't lump, the outfitters, Kerry Romero would have been in the guerrilla legislatures. They would have opened the outfitter or the quota statute and fixed it once for all. So for 12, 14 years now, I've been begging the commission to not just roll this garbage over. And so last time in 2022, I came up with, I thought was a clever compromise where you're going to lump half the bighorn tags. That way outfitters and non-residents still get a tag each for the Rocky Rams and the things. Outfitters would lose 3 ram tags that residents would pick up, then use the traditional real definition of hunt code for the rest of them. It's complicated, but if you put 13 tags into a hunt code, then an outfitter and a non-resident will get the tag. So, and then in Malabay's letter, the Attorney General's letter, it says that and Stewart said that you must lump, basically, the impression you must lump. Well, after Stewart said that, I just looked at the proclamation. I counted over 70, just in pronghorn alone, over 70 hunt codes where outfitters or non-residents don't get a tag. The quota law absolutely doesn't say that you have to lump if you don't have enough tags. It's silly. You have a decision to make here, and where I have so much heartburn with the commission, and I don't really necessarily mean you as a commission, but as a body through history, the 30 years I've been watching, you were close. At any inflection point where you have to make a decision, well, we're going to have to interpret for residents or non-residents, which means outfitters, to the commission. Let's be real, right? You always go with what the outfitters want. I begged you last time not to fully lump, to partially lump, and that way would put enough pressure on the legislature to fix it. And I said, when you just rolled it over the way it was and they made it 2-year rules, I said, we're going to be back here in 2 years fighting over the same thing, because you have. Roll it over.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Commission, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair. Stuart Lighty, so it was Representative or Chairman Nathan P. Small that requested the letter from the AGs, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, that is correct.
Okay. So when he requested the letter, Sally Mallory responded, not the former Honorable AG Hector Banderas. So currently, what you're saying, we're going to keep the same allotments on hunt code 1201, 1202, 1203, 1204, and we're just going to extend it an additional 2 years so it can fall in the 4-year cycle again, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, the licenses that were in the opinion, and she signs it as an opinion, whether it's signed by the Attorney General or not, but she does sign it as an opinion. Those were the licenses at the time. And so for everyone's knowledge, bighorn sheep has up to numbers because the population adjustments can happen a lot in 1 year. We have a disease event, we may not harvest as many. So the commission has given authority to the department to allow an up to number each year. And so, for example, this last season, this coming up season, we drew 25 licenses for Rocky Rams, 24 licenses for Desert Ram, 20 licenses for Rocky U, and 20 licenses for Rocky U archery. Whether those license numbers change very much or not in the next cycle, it really depends on or next year, It depends on what the population does. We are not proposing any changes in terms of let's change the up to numbers or change the season dates or change where we're at hunt. All we are saying is change the extension date of that rule that expires on March 31st, 2025 to expire at the same time, 2027 with the rest of the rules. We'll come at that time, like we do the rest of the big game rules, and say, here's where we see from a management course, what's this population doing? Should our up to numbers be higher? Should they be lower? Should we create a new hunt because we have some new population that's doing well, or we have a population that's not? So that would be at that time with the regular rule cycle where we come with the biological information. All we're saying at this point is to continue the rule till that cycle. No management changes. It really is, as discussed, it's a function of how the draw process works.
So I was there at that meeting in Eagles Nest when we made this a 2-year rule that was going to allow the stakeholders who were, and the department, the discussions out in the lobby at the state park office, to go lobby the legislature to potentially change this or to fix it. So if we extend this to 2027, that gives the stakeholders and groups an additional 2 years to try to get this changed at the legislature if they want to.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, that's correct.
Okay. So talk to your legislators. That's all I have. Thank you.
We do, but don't make the operators, they don't listen to stuff like you don't listen to the legislators, let the operators go along. They won't do anything.
Mr. Nguyen,
Don't listen, just like you don't listen.
Mr. Nguyen, can we, I don't want to throw you out. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? We didn't, I didn't ask about online. Is there anything, anybody online?
Chairman Stump, we do not have any online comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Lively.
Mr. Chair,
Ma'am.
Would it assist the commission to review the past records that were brought up for discussion? I'm not sure it would, because I think the focus is just the time frame of this particular rule. I respect the comments that were provided today by Jesse Dubell, David Heff, and Brandon Nguyen. I'm looking at the records that were presented in 2022. The letter dated March 29th, 2022, from Nathan Small, House of Representatives, to Hector Balderas. I'm also looking at a letter dated April 8th, 2022, from Jesse Dubell. And I'm also looking at the letter dated April 5th, 2022, from Sally Mollevey, Assistant Attorney General, where she actually signed the letter as a response to a request for an Attorney General opinion. I respect everything that is being said today, but I think the focus is really the rule and the time frame. I think some of the comments that are being made is a reminder to the commission that we serve as policy makers, and it's very important. I'm very mindful of one of our new commissioners, Commissioner Pack. She's always reminding us to be very responsive and open to those that we serve. I'm just pointing out all of this as for the record, and I don't know if any of the other commissioners would like to see some of this record, but I do think it's important that we stay focused on what we're being tasked to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Hickey.
Sure.
Are there any other comments?
Commissioner
Chair,
Clemente
may
and
I?
myself.
Adding a little bit to what the commissioner just said, I think one of the things that we got to take into consideration, there is no changes to the actual management or there's no changes to the species population. There's no changes to the harvesting, the numbers of harvesting. There is no changes to the dates of the season or anything like that. And we do have a season coming up because of the amount of time. I mean, this is just an extension. I think this is more of allocation of the tags or licenses going to different people, to different public, right? So I think this needs to move just because of that season coming up. But in the motion, I believe it has to be specified that if there is anything that it comes out, whether it's an amendment or something, that the commission should be looking at it. We don't have to wait another 2 years or 4 years, because I believe this doesn't throw it into the 4-year cycle, correct? You're just asking for the extension of 2 years.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clemente, that is correct. It'd just be an extension of 2 years, put it back in line with the rest of the other rules. And if for some reason the legislature during this session decides to make something, change the quotas or statutes, you all can always amend rules to align with statutes.
And I think it's something that the commission should be looking at to bring this into the resolution. So I think it does need to be approved because of the management more than anything.
Thank you, Commissioner Clemente.
Thank you, Commissioner Salazar-Hickey. I have been looking at some of the materials that were available from 2 years ago that's found online, so I'm more than happy to look at information and digest it. As a clarification, are we bringing this up at 2 more meetings before we pass anything or decide anything?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Pack, I think the proposal, because it is just an amendment, it's not a full rule change. It's just a proposed to amend the termination date, more or less. We would propose coming back in August for an adoption of that amendment. We will post on our online as the proposed changes as soon as we get done with this meeting, unless the commission gives us different direction. So the department's proposal would be to pass it at the August meeting with an amendment, unless there's different direction from the commission.
If we were going to review any of that information or even think, and of course I needed commissioners' opinions, but if we're going to even consider potentially some of the comments we heard today, we would need another time to do that, or unless you are truly set that there is no reason to do that at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Pack. I think that we do need to address this, but today would not be the time. It's not really on our agenda. So let's move on to
Chairman Stump, if I could, I'd like to introduce our county manager. Stepped in. He's in a hurry he's got back-to-back meetings today, but I'd like to really welcome everyone here to Lee County. I had the opportunity to be the county commissioner here for about 10 years and had the opportunity of hiring our county manager about 13, 14 years ago. And he's done a great job for Lee County, keeping things running and taking care of the people. And he's really got great people here working for Lee County, and the facilities here. He can't be more proud of it. Just like to introduce Mike Gallagher.
Chair, oh, not sure. All right, great. This is on. Well, Chair, Commissioners, welcome to Lee County. I feel really, I now need to change my remarks, given the kind comments that Commissioner Fulfer made. I was going to really give my opinion on what it was like working with them. Some of you may know what it's like already. I'm not sure what time he arrived at today's meeting, but I'm just joking. It's early, right? So welcome to Lee County. Greatly appreciate you are all here. We hope our facilities and our staff have been accommodating to meet your needs here today. Commissioner Fulfer, wow, it's been a while since I've said Commissioner Fulfer. Commissioner Fulfer, like you said, had the pleasure of working with him for quite some time when he was a commissioner. And it's great to see him representing Lee County on this board, on this commission. And it's really an honor to see each of you here today. And if you need anything from the county, Greg has my contact information. I rushed in here, otherwise I would give you each my business card, but my cell number's on that card. And if there's anything we can ever do to help you all to work with the commission, we're here to do so, and would love to be able to do that. Hope the coffee, was there coffee? I heard some comments if there's coffee or
Coffee
not.
was good, Mike.
All right, guys, we'll make sure. I had a question about that, but really appreciate you all being here today. Greg, thank you for the comments. It's great seeing you at a meeting on time. But anyway, I was late too. So again, welcome and thank you for being here.
You tried, Mike. There were 6 sheriffs between here and there.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Fulfer, thank you. Item number 9 on the agenda is to be presented by Colonel Tim Simbal. It's an action item today. Colonel Simbal.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you. So agenda item 13 is reserving 2 elk licenses for nonprofit wish granting organizations. Here lies your authority under 17.3.13.5, which allows the commission to reserve up to 2 elk licenses a year for children under the age of 21 who have a life-threatening illness and have been qualified through a nonprofit wish granting organization. Here are the 6 that we currently have. We rotate through a cycle with these, and each organization selects their own applicants, and the applicant that is chosen must purchase an elk hunting license. So the recommendation for this year would be to award those authorizations to the organization Hunt of a Lifetime and Holy Pursuits. The license year is September 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. So that basically encompasses the whole hunting time. Any legal weapon type, and it's open to any area that's open to elk hunting, and either sex bag limit. So really a wonderful tag and a wonderful opportunity for one of these, usually children under the age of 20. And here's a couple of pictures from some older hunts that have taken place. We usually try and have an officer go out there in the field and meet them on the ground, whether they, help them spot some elk with binoculars or just get there to talk to them for a little bit. But it's a really unique and neat opportunity that the state has and that the commission has the authority to allow.
Thank you, Colonel. Are there any questions from the audience? They did not give me a card. Here it comes. Go ahead, Brandon. Come up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, Commissioners. So on this, if you look at the number of like these kind of special tags where we have for special purposes, like this is a worthy purpose, right? It seems like, yeah, 2 tags here, 2 tags there. See, every year we come in here, it seems like, oh, let's put 2 over here, 2 over here. I mean, heck, you've got 13,800 E+ tags. Right now on my feed, on my social media feed, I've got a company from Utah, Hushin, and they're pimping out a New Mexico landowner unit-wide tag for it's a t-shirt company. Literally, they sell t-shirts, and they're pimping out a New Mexico elk tag to sell t-shirts, and then you get to hunt with them on a unit-wide landowner permit, and the advertiser can be hunting in a wilderness on a landowner permit in a capital W Wilderness. Also Dallas Safari Club of New Mexico. I mean, just that alone, Dallas Safari Club of New Mexico. If that doesn't make you cringe, I don't know what will. They're pimping out a tag. They've sold, depending on whether they sold them in big groups or small groups, right now they brought in $60,000 to $70,000. They don't even say what they're going to do with the money. It's not like who knows what they're going to do with the money. So they're raffling off a landowner permit. Same thing, unit-wide permit. And they say also, we're going to hunt in the wilderness on this unit-wide permit. You get to go on a fully guided hunt. It's worth $25,000 and stuff. So I see this all the time. And whenever there's a tag being pimped, a private landowner tag being pimped for some cause that doesn't have anything to do with conservation, because New Mexico has 72% of all the private landowner tags in North America or in the United States, 72% of all of them, of course, it's going to be New Mexico tag. Let these orgs use one of these tags for these causes too, instead of just to raise money for themselves or sell t-shirts or whatever. There's plenty of tags. I would encourage you not to do this. We have more enhancement tags, not even including the private. We have more enhancement tags by far than any other state. We just give them away like they're candy. While, you know, I'm on my 6th year not drawing an L tag, and I put in for some pretty easy to draw stuff. You know, I try to get my odds up to 30, 40%. I'm on 6 years now. Just let the residents draw it. And if someone wants to do something, there's plenty of private tags in New Mexico that they can buy them. Just like if they can sell t-shirts with them, I think they can take the you know, disabled people or disadvantaged people, whatever, hunting too. There's plenty of opportunity. If someone wants to actually step up and put their money where the mouth is and contribute to this thing, don't give them our tags. You've already given enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Do we have anybody online for comment?
Chairman Stump, we do have Tiger Espinoza, and Tiger, you have the floor.
Hello, this is Tiger Espinoza with the Dallas Safari Club, New Mexico. I just would like to comment on Mr. Nguyen's comments. We are a nonprofit organization. We are not pimping out any tags. We're raising money to do things here in New Mexico, support kid fishing days, conservation, etc. Sure, we don't have a specific item on our website to where the money is going to, but we do have a link to show where money raised has went to in the past. So the comments of pimping out tags in the name of raising money for conservation is unacceptable. I don't think that is a very fair assumption by anybody. Like I said, we are a nonprofit organization here to raise money to do things here in our state of New Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Espinosa. Is there anybody else online today?
Chairman Stump, we have no additional online comments.
Thank you. I mean, I have a motion to.
Mr. Chair. Move to accept the department's recommendation and reserve 2 elk licenses for the 2 applicants to be sponsored by the nonprofit wish granting organizations, or the alternate should the primary individuals not be able to participate in their elk hunt.
Let me have a second, please.
We'll move to second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Colonel Simmel.
Thank you, and I hope to have some pictures to share with you around this time next year.
Great, thank you.
Welcome aboard, new chair and vice chair.
Thank you, thank you. Item number 10 is presented by Chief Paul Varela. It's an infrastructure capital improvement plan. This is an action item. Chief.
Morning, Commissioners. Agenda item 10 is a presentation and approval of the department's infrastructure and capital improvement plan for their fiscal years 2026 to 2030. Each year, the department submits our infrastructure and capital improvement plan to the Capital Outlay Bureau at the Department of Finance on July 1st, 2024. which is required by statute. Please keep in mind that this is separate from our operating budget requests. When we submit this budget, hearings are held in the month of October by the Department of Finance and the Legislative Finance Committee. They will make a recommendation. Once their recommendations are submitted to the legislature, it will become part of a bill, which will then be approved as it goes through the legislative process. And that's how our capital projects are approved by law. The important thing to remember in this, our request, is that the fiscal year 26 projects are the most important to focus on because those are what becomes law in the next coming year. The other 4 years can be amended with each coming year. But we are statutorily required to present each 5 years. So the first year is our fiscal year 26 infrastructure request. It includes 2 projects. The first project is the Wildlife Habitat and Restoration Management Project. This includes riparian projects, water and forest management, health projects, and also improvement of state commission game-owned properties. The second project is for $500,000, and that is for hatchery improvements from our bond interest and retirement fund. So the total request for fiscal year 2026 is $2 million. So in each year going forward, you'll see that we are not requesting any game protection fund money. We are trying to manage our balance in that fund going forward until we can seek a license fee increase. We are diligently working to manage that game protection fund. For fiscal year 2027, we are requesting 2 projects as I suggested earlier. The first project is Wildlife Habitat and Restoration Management for $5.5 million. This includes $2 million from the Big Game Enhancement Fund, $2 million from the Habitat Management Fund, and $1.5 million from the Sykes Act Fund. The second project is for $500,000 for the off-highway vehicle from the Off-Highway Vehicle Management Fund. This is to develop and improve off-highway vehicle recreational opportunities throughout the state. So this, for our fiscal year 27, we are requesting $6 million. For fiscal year 28, the department is requesting 2 projects as well. This is similar to fiscal year 26 as presented before. So the first project is Wildlife Habitat and Restoration Management Projects for $1.5 million from the Sykes Act. And the second project is for $500,000 from the Bond Interest and Retirement Fund for hatchery improvements. Fiscal year 29 is similar to fiscal year 27. Again, there are 2 projects that are being requested. $5.5 million, again, $2 million from the Big Game Enhancement Fund, $2 million from the Habitat Management Fund, and $1.5 million from the Sykes Act Fund. The second project is another $500,000 from the Off-Highway Vehicle Maintenance Fund for recreational improvements and opportunities throughout the state. And lastly is the fiscal year 30 year request, which is again 2 projects, which is similar to fiscal year 28 and fiscal year 26. Again, we are requesting $1.5 million from the Sykes Act Fund for the first project and $500,000 for hatchery improvements from the Bond Interest and Retirement Fund. This next slide is just a little information going forward. In the month of August, we will be presenting to the Commission our operating budget request for fiscal year 2026. We will seek commission approval in August. That will be statutorily submitted to the Department of Finance and the Legislative Finance Committee on September 1st. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lopez.
Mr. Thank you for the report. I do have a question for yourself and Director Sloan. And this goes off our last meeting that we saw the great improvements that were done to Glenwood and the good work that the manager's doing down there. What's his name, Rice? Manager Rice, so he's doing a heck of a job. Where does, coming from northwestern New Mexico, where does Los Ojos Fish Hatchery fall in this plan, or what phase? Because it hasn't moved since 2019. So like the visitor center and all that stuff. So Do you know what phase that one might be in?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lopez, I believe that Kirk is intending to use at least some of the $500,000 being requested in the coming year to address the visitor center.
But do you know which one is it, FY 26, 30?
That's the FY 26 request.
Okay, so Los Ojos is in that request?
It's part of that 500,000 coming out of the bond interest retirement fund.
And that's just gonna be the visitor center and raceways, or?
I believe that will only be sufficient for the visitor center.
The wall?
Yeah.
Commissioner Lopez, as part of our prior year capital projects, we also have $5.5 million of game protection fund money that is planned on being used for various hatchery improvements. I'm not sure if Los Ojos is included in that, but it is a possibility.
That's all I have. Thank you, Chief and Director and Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Are there any questions? Actually, we do have a question from the public. David Heft. Comment.
Chair, Commissioners, David Heft, I've been involved, my comments are specifically directed towards the Sykes Act portion of the capital improvement request. One of the recurring problems, and I've been involved in this program now, this is my 4th decade. I just finished a 3-year appointment on the Citizens Advisory Committee. As a biologist in the field, I used a lot of the funds to get work done on the ground. But one of the recurring problems in the program has been the buildup of unspent funds in the account. And it's gone on, this is not something new, this has gone on for decades. There have been attempts in the past to try to have special funding amounts released to bring that account down. At the end of FY 23, that account stood at 4.3 million. And even if you account for encumbered funds for projects that were approved, that's still millions of dollars sitting there that should be available and should be going to the ground. So my recommendation is maybe we need to take a little harder look in the future to try to see how we can change business, because evidently we're doing the same thing over and over. And I know there's a lot of needs out there in the ground. That money can be better spent than just sitting unspent. You know, I realize FY 25 here, the largest amount ever released for the program's coming up 2.5 million. So that's going to be kind of exciting for the new CAC members. I know we have one here today, but then we're going right back to the traditional 1.5, even though right now we're collecting 2 million a year. You know, and by agreement between the agencies, we're limited to no more than 200,000 for administrative cost. So there's still hundreds of thousands every year that potentially could be used. That's just my recommendation to look at in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heft. Any other questions from the commission?
Chairman, I'd like just to make a couple of comments. Probably, you know, I'd love to see this type of money being spent more to as a matching grant. Is it working or not? Or matching grant type of projects to put this money toward even like federal funds that were sent to New Mexico for restoration. I think there's a lot of programs out there that we could be looking for to use this to match other grants that might be available, and you could supersize this fund and do so much more with it. I know that a lot of times there comes attachments when you start using other government branches that you probably don't want to get into, but at least you can look for those opportunities, and that money's going to be spent someplace. And so I've always looked at, you know, even Lee County here, we've always tried to get over $50 million a year in grants just to come for facilities. And New Mexico, even though Lee County probably sends up 20% of the New Mexico budget, we never got even 0.5% of that money back here, but at least we asked for it and we look for it. And those few opportunities really help to provide some great things. And so it takes a lot of work and sometimes even a dedicated person for that. But it's an opportunity, I think, if we look for those.
Thank you, Commissioner Pfeffer. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would point out that for probably somewhere on the order of 85, 95% of the funds that we do request in capital, we do match it with either Pittman Robertson or Dingle Johnson funding, as well as State Wildlife Action Fund funding. And I think we are working with State Forestry on some additional matching funds. So I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Folk for that finding that match and growing that pot of money. This is more or less seed money for us to get to that bigger pot.
Wonderful. Thank you, Director Snow. Okay, this is an action item. Okay, for the next one. Thank you. So, can you call Director Sloan? Can you please just do a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the FY 26, FY 30 capital plan as presented by the department.
All those in favor say aye.
I think we need a second to that.
Second, so I apologize. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
I didn't hear a second to my motion.
There was not. Did you complete?
So I also move to second the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Director Sloan, can you take a roll, please?
Sure, I can take a roll, or you can do it by voice vote. I'm sorry. I can take the roll, or you can do it by voice vote if you prefer.
Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Pack,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Salazar Higbee,
Yes.
Chair Stone.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, agenda item number 11 is the general public comment. Each person has 3 minutes. I'd like to start with Jesse DeBell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Congratulations, Mr. Chair, on the election today. Congratulations, Madam Vice Chair Hickey. I'd really like to make a few comments that might sound critical, but I'd like to remind the commission that when I refer to the commission, I'm oftentimes talking about previous members who were in the seats that you're filling today. This commission has a really important responsibility to make decisions regarding New Mexico's public lands, waters, and especially New Mexico's wildlife. And I think it's in the best interest of the public, the best interest of the agency, and the best interest of this commission to keep those management decisions at the commission level whenever possible. The legislature and our courtrooms are not designed to manage wildlife and deal with these issues. We're tasked to do that here. But if you look at the audience, we have like 6 members from the public in attendance today. I've been at commission meetings where you couldn't get in the door. The fire marshal closed it off because it was too full. We've lost confidence. The public has lost confidence in the commission's willingness to act on the issues that need to be acted on. 5 years ago, when I approached the commission on stream access, we had an unconstitutional rule in the books. Because of forces above the commission refused to act. And what that did is it just took a situation where the commission had full authority to be engaged in the outcome, and you forfeited 100% of that authority and handed it over to the courts. You lost all of it, 100%. We still got the outcome we were looking for. You lost all influence to be involved in that outcome. And now everybody's scrambling to deal with it. There's a huge problem with E+, and that problem's not going away. It's getting bigger. People are becoming more aware of it, and it's a growing issue, and it absolutely has to be addressed. And I'm encouraging this commission to address that problem, because if you don't, you're not going to avoid the problem being fixed. We're going to fix the problem. We'll just do it in a different branch of government after you forfeit your ability to be engaged in the issue. I'm asking you to please not do that. Thank you very much.
Mr. DeBell, thank you. Brandon Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yeah, so I'm going to continue on the theme that Jesse was on E+. So for E+, what I'd encourage the commission to be cognizant of and think about is 4 numbers. I've got 4 numbers for you. 7%. New Mexico has 7%, less than 7% of the Intermountain West big elk permits. 72%. Even though we only have 7% of the permits of the Intermountain West, we have 72% of all the transferable private landowner tags. So think about that. We only have 7% of the tags, and prior commissions have decided to move 72% of all the transferable tags in the Intermountain West exist in New Mexico. The other number is 38%. 38% of every elk tag in New Mexico is given to a landowner to sell to the highest bidder and sell T-shirts and whatever it is. The other number is 55%. Only 55% of all the elk tags in New Mexico is awarded to a New Mexico resident by public process. The only state that's close to us in the Intermountain West is Colorado at 59%, but they have 100,000 over-the-counter tags, so every Coloradan can hunt 2 elk every year. New Mexican, it's draw or starve. So the next lowest after Colorado and New Mexico, we're at 55% of our tags are public resident tags. The next lowest is 87% in Montana. And my numbers a little bit, it could be 85 to 89, but around 80. Everyone else is around 90%. We're 55. We're like kind of half of everyone else. So I think with all those numbers, and I'm going to ask you very specifically, I want you to take 10% of the private tags in New Mexico. So 38% are private. So I'm asking you to take 10% of the private tags. So that's less than 4% of all the private tags, of all the tags in New Mexico. I'm asking you to give those back to the public by requiring anytime someone gets a private tag, there's a public tag associated with that tag on private property. It's the Utah Cooperative Wildlife Management Unit model. If a landowner wants to get, and this exists all across the West where they even have landowner tags, there's some direct public benefit that's completely absent in New Mexico. We have unit-wide, which is voluntary on the landowner, and you can go on forever why that's a negative to the public, not a positive. That people like to act like, oh, that gives us access. If you do the math, it's ridiculous. It's all for private benefit, not for public benefit. So that's what I'm asking. I want you to take 10% of the private tags and make them public on those same properties. The land.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Mark Mantini.
You set up for the last speaker. I think we've got it.
All right, this will be a little bit different. Perfect. My name is Mark Matini. I'm on the state board for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. You also just appointed me to the Citizen Advisory Committee for Habitat Stamp Program. This will be a little bit different. First of all, you did the Silver City meeting, which I think was a wonderful idea. And I encourage continued, even though it's not always pleasant, but continued conversation with people in the state. I think that's extremely important. Partly where I was instead of with you all was in Minneapolis for the annual get together of backcountry hunters and anglers. What we have identified at BHA is that there are some enormously serious emerging issues around conservation across the state, and also because at our rendezvous there also were people from Canada. there are enormous movements to limit the money, scientifically based money going into the management of wildlife. There are lots of people who want land. There are lots of corporations who want to limit the availability of things. And we've also got people who think there's no point to, and let's just not let anyone be hunted. Let's just let everyone wander around and see how the bears do and how the cows do with the bears and all those things. So this actually is a major movement that we are just beginning now, and I'm going to provide some information on that with a lot of the data that we've been gathering from states all over the country to let us all think together about how do we maintain conservation in a scientifically based way that we don't end up with everyone in the country sitting down looking at their screens all the time, so that our children and people will be able to get out. And it's not just hunting, it's also fishing. We know here that there have been lots of problems with fisheries, and you all are working hard on that. We are working hard on it. We don't always agree about every piece of it, but this is the movement that Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is taking going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montini. Do we have anybody online?
Chairman Stump, we have Tiger Espinoza. Tiger, you have the floor.
I'd like to thank the commission for allowing everybody to speak today. I'd like to congratulate Chairman Stump on the nomination and the election, and also Vice Chair Salazar Hickey on her nomination as well. I'd like to congratulate the 3 nonprofits that got approved for accepting donated licenses. I know all those licenses get put into New Mexico youth hands or veterans, first responders. And I've personally been part of some of those donated tags, and it goes a long ways for our New Mexico residents. We support the extension of the Bighorn rule that Chief Lively presented. Also, we agree with reserving the 2 elk licenses for the wish granting organizations. That is part of what Dallas Safari Club New Mexico does here in New Mexico. We've worked with the Vermejo Park Ranch to take New Mexico veterans out on bison hunts in the past. Some of these veterans were in wheelchairs, hardly could walk. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity for these individuals. We've also worked with Phoenix Outdoors last year and helped New Mexico veteran Eric Shy, who was shot by a sniper during his service and is in a wheelchair. And if you go on our Facebook or Phoenix Outdoors Facebook, you can see his picture and his smile after he shot his white-tailed deer this year. Big part of what nonprofits here in New Mexico should do. So we agree with that. And again, we would like to congratulate the new commission chairman and the new commission vice chair. And thank you again for allowing the public to speak on all these comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Espinosa. Okay, item number 12. Right? Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment about the executive session. I noticed that we are limited to 1 item, the limited personnel matters. In our last commission meeting at our executive session, we had another agenda item, which was litigation. And rather than modify our executive session, what I would like to recommend during this public presentation of our meeting, an acknowledgement that our newly appointed chair, Mr. Chair Stump, we're going to need your engagement on some meetings. I want to say thank you to past Vice Chair Terzio Lopez and Commissioner Fernando, because both of them worked with me on some of the litigation matters. But what I'd like to ask you, Chair and Commissioners, is an acknowledgement that when we move forward between today and our next meeting, that Chair Stump, you either include former Vice Chair Terzio Lopez in some of the discussions. He was an invaluable member in our discussions with our attorneys on some of those litigation matters. I also think that Commissioner Clemente did a great job as well. And then, of course, you know, I'm happy to serve you, commissioners, with my legal expertise. But I think we need to be mindful that we should only have 3 commissioners, not 4, in violation of the Open Meetings Act. We should only have 3 who are going to move with the attorneys on some of the issues that are coming forward. Did I make myself clear?
Yes, ma'am, you did.
Okay, thank you. I think it'd be great if we could have you, Chair, me, Vice Chair, and possibly former Vice Chair Lopez, the 3 of us working with the attorneys. And if former Vice Chair Lopez is not comfortable in doing that, I would strongly recommend Commissioner Clemente.
Thank you, Commissioner Hickey. I'd like to move to adjourn to executive session, which is close to the public, to discuss personnel matters. It's section 10.15.1 NMSA 1978. This motion requires a roll call vote. May I have a motion, please?
Chair Stump. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Director Sloan, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Pack,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hickey.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Meeting adjourned. The commission had adjourned into executive session close to the public. During the executive session, the commission discussed only those matters specified in its motion to adjourn. It took no action as to any matter. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I so move to make the motion to adjourn.
Have a second.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.